Hello, everyone. My name is Usman, and I'm an engineering manager for Confluence Server. For the last many months, we've been on a very exciting journey, a very challenging one actually as well, to deliver Confluence 7.0, which is the newest, most shiniest, latest, greatest version of Confluence. It's a platform version for us, which means that some of the things across the board, we will be breaking compatibility. As some of you might know, that a platform version for us comes every 2-3 years. So it's a great opportunity for Confluence to potentially break compatibility, but more importantly, ship tons of massive improvements across the board, be it for performance improvements or packing high-profile features. Confluence 7 packs a lot of benefits for not just customers, but also our ecosystem vendors. So I wanted to take this opportunity to present to you, everyone, what we've packed in Confluence 7, especially because just a couple of days ago, we were able to successfully roll out that version of Confluence for everybody to use. So it's available online publicly right now, and you can go and download it out. Sorry, something seems to be going on with the presentation. Oh, that's the one. Thanks. Sorry about that. All right, so before we start about what is packed into Confluence, I do want to start off by sharing some of the messaging we're sharing with our customers for this version of Confluence. I think most of us can agree that our customers are the most important people we think about when we think about launching new versions of our products, be it for performance improvements, new features, or whatnot. So it's really important to think about what we're telling our customers about. So the main message with this version of Confluence for our customers is that we've invested in and will continue to invest in 3 key areas of Confluence for you. The first area being performance improvements across the board, be it bug fixes or easing up the upgrade cycles or whatnot, making the lives of our admins much easier. Second thing is shipping out performance improvements and other bug fixes for making the user experience side of things much better. So the users who actually use the product, they feel much happier about that. And then third, we have packaged additional tools in this version, which will help you with some enterprise-grade level problems like compliance and permission management. So these are the 3 key areas that we're committed to in this version and beyond for enterprise needs. So on a high level, there's 3 things I'm going to be talking about in this presentation. Upgrades and cleanups, the new features that are packed into this version of Confluence, and then some other important callouts that are not features or upgrades, but they are still important for you to know. So let's dive into the upgrades and cleanups. All right, so as some of you might already know, Platform 5 is the platform on which Confluence and other products are actually built. It's called, platform. So we have upgraded that version of the framework in this version of Confluence. What that means essentially is that some of the underlying libraries that form that platform for us, we have upgraded those. It's been a long time coming, and in this version of Confluence, we have successfully upgraded those libraries. Some of those libraries are Atlassian maintained, whilst other libraries are just third-party libraries. Some quick examples being jQuery, Guava, the Spring Framework, etc. I think it's important to appreciate that being on the most recent versions of these libraries allows us to leverage not just the improvements packed within these libraries, but it also helps us move pretty quickly if, let's say, we find security issues in these underlying libraries, right? So it's really important for us to be on the latest version of these libraries as much as possible. So with this version of Confluence, you get that. I think the important thing to call out here is that because most of us in the audience are app developers, what does it really mean for app developers with this change specifically? One thing I wanted to call out is that in Spring, we have this auto-wiring default behavior, which is set to auto-detect. With these upgrades, we have changed that to constructor. I'm not sure how that affects most of us, but if it does, I think it's important for us. Like we have a doc that goes out for that specifically, so please indulge and understand how that affects you. That's just one of the many important, I guess, outcomes of this upgrade that we've done. A full comprehensive list of upgraded libraries that we have gone through is available online. So I please encourage you to just go and review that and see if that affects any of the libraries that you use internally. The second thing is AUI. I think Confluence is pretty much the last product that was not on the latest version of AUI, but with Confluence 7.0, we are using now AUI 8. Our upgrade to AUI 8 basically means that once you start using Confluence 7, you are using the most fastest version of Confluence out in the wild so far. You might have heard the talk on AUI 8 in the morning today, I think, which would have given you a much deeper insight into what it's all about and all the improvements that are packed into that version of AUI. But here I'd like to just briefly talk about just a quick few of those that directly impact Confluence. The new AUI has a very reduced JavaScript footprint, and it has a very much smarter resource loader. What that means is that your pages now load much, much quicker. The new version of AUI also is about 40% faster than its predecessor, which in turn obviously benefits the products and everything we do. What does it mean again for app developers in this context? We do have very extensive and comprehensive guides on how you should upgrade, like how you should react to an upgrade on AUI and the things that you would need to do in your apps to be able to accommodate those changes. They've been out there for a while because this version of AUI came many months ago. You should be able to consult those guides and do the necessary steps to be able to make sure that your apps are compatible with these changes. It's nothing specific to Confluence. It does apply to all the products that we have. The next thing is that we have ended support for a bunch of things in Confluence 7, and we have removed a bunch of stuff as well. The first of those things being ending support for some of the macros and gadgets within Confluence. What we've done is basically made them hidden from the macro browser that you see. But if you have those macros already added on the pages, it will not be affected. So you'll continue to use those as it is so far. Secondly, we have 3 screens called referrers, trackback, and orphan pages. We have removed those screens. Third one, HipChat integration plugin is now disabled by default, but only for new installations. What that essentially means is that there is no impact on existing installations. We have ended support for that, which means that we will not be fixing any bugs, but you will continue to use that up until you have HipChat available. And then lastly, we have in Confluence 7.0, the support for WebDAV has been ended, so we don't support that anymore starting 7.0. And it will be completely removed in a future version of Confluence. Some of you already might know that WebDAV is a very old protocol. It is very prone to security issues and whatnot. So in order for us to stay lean, stay ahead of it, we had to remove that. It does power up some functionality in Confluence, like edit an office, or if you want to connect to a Confluence site through a web dev client. I think it's important to remember that we did replace edit an office with the companion app in 6.11. And I fully recognize that there's problems that Confluence is trying to resolve with that companion app. So, please be advised that in a successive version of 7 dot something, we will be fixing most of those issues with companion app. So that should help with this situation. And then lastly, we have removed about 72,000 lines of deprecated code in this version of Confluence. These are the lines that have existed for versions 1.x through to 5.10, and they were bloating the product, making things slower, whatnot. So we have taken the time to remove all of that bulkiness and just make the product much leaner. What does that mean for app developers? Nothing much really, hopefully. We have updated all the Java docs, so all the information that you need on how to consume the API should be part of the Java docs. It should be pretty clear. Another thing we've done is also published another guide, which will be a very comprehensive account of how we, Atlassian, release the new versions of our apps to make sure that they're compatible with 7.0. So it's guidelines, it's a set of practices that we use ourselves. And so we want to share that with vendors as well. So we've published those already. I do encourage you to go and read those and see if any of that applies to your apps. Hopefully it helps you release new versions of your apps which are compatible with 7.0. And beyond that, pretty much everything should be seamless. We have done a lot of testing to ensure that this does not affect our ecosystem at all. All right, on to the new shiny features. So I think most of us know about Synchrony. Synchrony is kind of at the heart of Confluence. It's the engine that powers up collab editing. And as most of us might already know, although collab editing is a pretty cool feature to have, it can be pretty costly, especially if you're an admin that is maintaining a particularly busy instance of Confluence. And a lot of people are collaborating. Synchrony and its data footprint can be a big pain point. And that's because Synchrony is recording every single keystroke that you make, and it does not get rid of it ever. So it's always there. And so as you keep using Confluence more and more, and exacerbated by the size of your instance, it basically bloats everything out, and everything is slowed down. And we've known about this problem for a while, and I'm happy to report that in this version of Confluence, we have provided what we're calling safe guardrails for Synchrony. The way it manifests is that we have come up with 2 scheduled jobs in Confluence 7 that help you with your data growth for Synchrony. One of those jobs is called soft cleanup job. It's basically a scheduled job. It's a very lightweight piece of code that runs often, and it basically preemptively helps you to get ahead of your data growth. It helps you delete all the data that you probably don't need at all to be in the system. And it does on a regular basis. And then we have the hard cleanup job as well, which is basically disabled by default, but it's a job that can help you with aggressive data growth. So if you're trying to aggressively delete bulk of data, let's say for GDPR reasons, for example, for removing PII, then this job can help you with that. It is disabled by default because it can be a bit taxing on the system. The soft cleanup job is enabled by default. But the hard one can be enabled by the admin should you wish. One other important thing I want to call out here is that when you upgrade to Confluence 7 for the first time, there will be an upgrade job that is run the very first time. And that's to basically contain, like, get rid of the data that the customers have been amassing for like many months or years that they've been using collab editing. We have done extensive tests on how the tax of that, like the cost of running that job. And according to our tests, for the large profile, so as you might remember, we published a bunch of profiles a few months ago. So for the large profile, it takes about 30 minutes to run that job. So I think overall, it should not be too taxing. And one thing to keep in mind is that when you run it the first time, it can potentially delete some of your drafts if they have not been saved. But because Confluence saves the draft every 30 seconds, we're expecting the loss to be very minimal. The next feature is CDN support for data center only. If you're a customer with distributed teams or global offices, and there's a lot of distance between your Confluence sites, you would know the pain point of latency, right? And it can have a significant impact on your page load times. So it's essential to reduce this overhead to be able to help the teams collaborate better. A CDN can help ease such latency pain for distributed teams. And I'm happy to report that in Confluence 7, we have CDN support available for data center only. It's pretty easy to use that feature. You can use it through our Atlassian CloudFormation templates, or you can use a CDN of your choice and basically just go in there, plug in the URL of that CDN in Confluence site, of course, allowing your web firewall to be able to access that CDN, and that's it, basically. You can start benefiting from this feature. In our tests, we have done extensive tests for this feature, and it shows that we got significant improvement across the board in terms of network traffic, CPU, and in terms of AppDex, we had a significant gain of 15%. All right, we have packaged another tool to ease the upgrade pain in Confluence. We know that upgrades can be a lot like it can be very taxing. It can involve a lot of planning, preparation, and so we've added extra support to make sure the upgrades go smoother for everyone. So this is a tool which helps you to prepare an upgrade plan tailored to your needs. And the good thing is it doesn't just work with Confluence 7. It is packaged within Confluence 7, but it can actually work with any version of Confluence 6.5 and above. It is easily available if you upgrade the Atlassian troubleshooting and support tools app. So you just upgrade that, and with any version of Confluence 6.5 and above, this should work. Quickly showing you how it looks like. As you can see, it gives you a suggestion on which version of Confluence to upgrade to based on your context. It also gives you a list of pre-upgrade checks in terms of like compatibility issues of your underlying tools or whatnot. It basically gives you a multi-step plan of what you need to do in order to make sure your upgrade is successful. These are some of the learnings so this is based off of many learnings we've done over many months and years of some common gotchas that our admins and support groups have witnessed for upgrades in Confluence. So we package that within the product to help you upgrade better. You can expand on that to get a much better granularity of information. And then similar to the pre-upgrade planning, we also have a post-upgrade planning tool. It's a report that basically gives you a deeper insight into how your upgrade went. For example, your upgrade might have broken some of the plugins. They might have been disabled. Or your upgrade might have resulted in some of the application links being broken or whatnot. So basically, it gives you some insights of what has happened. Or it might just tell you, hey, everything worked fine. I think the important call out here is that highlights very specifically the actions that you need to take to be able to rectify the situation if something broke. So hopefully it helps the admins understand whether or not an upgrade was successful. All right. And then lastly, there's a few other things that I'd like to call out beyond the features and the upgrades. The first of those is the Cloud Migration Assistant. You might have already been to the talks for this particular app, but if you're thinking of how to move your site to Confluence Cloud, this Migration Assistant is an invaluable app to help you plan this journey out. I wanted to share that we have bundled the brand new shiny version of that app within Confluence 7 as well. So if you are trying to plan that migration, this is going to help you quite a bit with this version of Confluence. It has many exciting new improvements, performance enhancements, bug fixes, and whatnot. The biggest thing I think is that it's data center approved now, which means that you can use this migration assistant to move over your data center app to the cloud should you wish to do that. And then lastly, it has given you much more flexible control over what you choose to migrate, so be it the user or the group migration. Previously, I think it was just the users or group migration or something like that. So it gives you much more flexibility and control now. All right, the next thing is that as your instance and size grows, you might feel that it's time for an infrastructure upgrade, right? And I know that planning for this and knowing how to deploy your applications with this enhanced infrastructure could be very taxing, could be very frustrating. And the biggest pain point is that there's no clear indication on how to do that effectively. For example, hey, does adding more nodes help me in this context? Does it help with my performance? Well, maybe not. Maybe adding more nodes can tank your performance. There could be cases like that. So yeah, I think there's a lack of clarity on how to scale out. To help you with this, we have ran a series of performance tests that help us figure out the right size for the instances of your Confluence sites. We have designed these tests to get very useful data-driven recommendations on the ideal size of your instances so that you can be confident that you have the right sizing to be able to support the load or the data footprint that you might have. I think one of the things that's important to appreciate here is that these are just baselines. So if you have some customizations or whatnot, then these might not be directly applicable to your case, but it will provide you a very good baseline of how to think about sizing your instances. Another thing to appreciate is that performance itself, the concept of it, depends on a variety of factors, right? So it can depend on the number or the types of apps that you use. It can depend on your traffic, your data growth, whatnot. So again, these are just recommendations. It might not be applicable directly to your context. The cost, we have provided the cost for these instances as well. So keep in mind, these costs do not cover costs for components like the load balancer or the shared home or things like that. We have only tested this on AWS. So if you use a different platform like Google, for example, your mileage may vary from this. And we have also published these tests so that you have the opportunity to go and deep dive into these tests to understand how basically our perspective of how we gauge throughput and recommendations. And then lastly, we have noticed, like over the many months and years, we've noticed that people have been directly accessing Lucene API, for different purposes. And whilst we appreciate that, whilst there's good reasons for that, it does slow down Atlassian in terms of allowing us to ship changes and modifications and updates to Lucene API. So starting Confluence 7, we have deprecated the direct access to Lucene APIs, and it will be completely disallowed in a future version of Confluence. I think it's important to appreciate the reason we did that is because we want to be able to support all the use cases that these APIs are for much quicker. We need to be able to make these changes in the underlying search framework much quicker. It's also important to share that there is no substitution for some of these APIs, especially the ones that could potentially hamper performance. However, we have very detailed documentation available for you to tap into the Confluence Search APIs as opposed to directly tapping into the Lucene APIs to be able to support your use cases. So I do encourage you to go and read that, and hopefully it helps you circumvent this problem. That's it. That's all about Confluence 7.0.